Commence primary ignition.
Hi, this is author Timothy Zahn. You're listening to Virtual Cantina Network.
Happy New Year!
New Year, same shit.
Yeah, jeez.
It's
Oh,
weird. Like
boy.
I've never been one of those like New Year, new me, and like
Yeah,
New Year, let's make a bunch of resolutions. I am like, it's the new year, and we're gonna go in as quietly as possible and
don't
not don't
move.
touch anything. Don't look at anybody funny. Like we're not gonna do anything sudden or drastic. And here we are, and it's January 8th, and I feel like the world is falling apart around us. So I'm just like,
Yeah,
well, I guess that's that was the right way to approach the new year, but we're here.
yeah. Um,
We're here.
it's been, as you guys have seen all over the news, California, like LA area, Malibu, Pacific Palisades, all under severe wildfires right now. Massive property damage, destruction, um, loss of life. Sending our thoughts to our friends who and our watchers who have been impacted and are in the current evac zone and even are close enough that may need to be evacuated. Um, we're thinking of you guys. So
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I'm actually a Southern California girl. I live here in Orlando now, but was born and raised in Southern California. And a lot of my family is still out there, so it's been a little bit of a stressful day. Watching places that I know and love, be under evac zones and burning to the ground.
yeah, Jeff, we're glad
The
you're here.
the fire, the encroaching, I think is the scariest thing because like you can see the sky burning and you just, Mark and I were talking about this before the show. It's like, do you have minutes? Do you have hours? Do you have days? Like, how long is it going to take? But
Yeah,
obviously, with the intense winds happening down in Southern California right now, it's things are moving very fast and very disastrous. So, friends, if you're in evacuation zones, don't mess around. Go, just leave. Things can be replaced. Houses can be rebuilt. You can't come back. So please take care of yourselves. Take care of your families, your pets. There are lots and lots of resources opening, shelters opening. 211 dial 211, and Airbnb is waiving booking fees and cost of renting an Airbnb, I believe, for up to a week. So please use every resource out there. It's really hard for us outside of California to do much of anything for you, but watch
yeah,
the world literally burn. So we're thinking of you, and please, this is also not the time to be, taking any risks. I saw a lot
to
of
be a
Southern
hero.
California is canceling. They're not allowing for any camping whatsoever right now. So um, just please be mindful of anything that state governments are saying, emergency services are saying. Um, you know, things can be rebuilt, houses can be rebuilt. Yes, we are losing lots of historical things. I just saw literally as the show was starting, the Will Rogers estate is burned to the ground. So that's pretty devastating.
Yeah,
But it's buildings can be rebuilt, but people can't be brought back.
yeah,
So please just take care of yourselves and do everything you can to stay out of a literal line of fire. Um, yeah, please take care of yourself. It's again, as a displaced Southern Californian, it's heartbreaking for me because I'm sitting here helpless watching
yeah.
people in places that I love, be under such scary conditions. So I'm definitely thinking of each and every one of you. And um,
It's awful.
again, just it's sad to lose such historical artifacts, and knowing so many people in Burbank and Glendale, especially, that's where a lot of my family is. Um, you know, it's scary to see it encroach on historical buildings, but I care so much more for them than the buildings. So,
Right.
you know, we're gonna do our best, but it's been a rocky start to 2025, and
Yeah.
so we're here for the next hour. We can't necessarily make things better for you out in California right now, but maybe we can distract you for an hour,
Yeah.
and just sit and talk. And
And how crazy is it that our topic of discussion tonight is filmmakers?
yeah, yep.
Oh, not
Yeah,
expecting that on
so
my bingo card.
no, and that's the other thing I guess I'll say just before we move on to the show and some of the more lighthearted things we're going to talk about. Because I didn't mention it before, please, Southern Californians, like, you guys know the drill. Like, unfortunately, in Southern California, fires are, I feel like I grew up just always knowing that wildfires were a thing, but like, please wear your masks. Please use some sort of ventilation or whatever you can do to
Eye
keep that,
protection. Yeah.
yeah, keep it out of your body. The smoke is obviously, whether your area is directly on fire or not, like, the smoke is so thick, and
Yeah.
it's definitely going to impact, especially with the winds, it's definitely going to impact the air around you. So,
Yeah.
um,
Jeff says
anything
the
you
air
can,
is thick with smoke and the smell of burnt everything. So
yeah,
that's crazy.
it's not great. So, in the next couple days, I know for sure I'm on uh, some tight financials right now, but I'm going to see what I can do to donate, whether it's to the Red Cross or whatever agency kind of pops up that can. I would encourage those of us outside of California to seek out some sort of way to help, whether it's financially or if you're in California and are able to volunteer.
Do what you can.
Obviously, that's important too. So,
There's a lot of
yeah,
like shelters that are opening for small animals and as well as like some livestock, horses. Um, I've been hearing things about that popping up. Um, just old shelters that are being reopened to take care of people's animals, and so that's pretty good.
yeah. One of the things I saw too, and again, for our Southern California friends that are in the chat right now, like, you guys know all this stuff, but for those of you who are outside Southern California and maybe haven't been watching the news or haven't seen what's going on, like, it's important to have this awareness and
Mm.
compassion and empathy for folks that are going through it right now. I know one of the things that is always top of mind for a lot of people are animals, and obviously, as forests and natural areas are burning to the ground, these animals are fleeing. So one of the things that you can do if you're able to and you're out in Southern California is to put out buckets of water out into your backyard or your front yard or somewhere where those animals might be able to just get a drink and get a breather as they're kind of running for their lives too. So, it's really scary stuff, and we're living in an era of just unprecedented weather and natural disasters. And here in Florida, we have the hurricanes, and up north there are the blizzards, and there are tornadoes in the Midwest. And for California, it's always been earthquakes and fires. So
Yeah, it's
it's,
always something.
it's scary because we're living in a time of unprecedented natural disasters. And I will leave the politics out of that for right now as I drink this water.
Tired of living in unprecedented times already. Jesus. This needs to stop.
Yeah, for sure. Couldn't agree more.
Mm.
So tonight, in the spirit of, I mean, again, an unintentional celebration of Hollywood, we are going to talk about directors, female directors in Star Wars. So we've got,
Producers, creatives that, female ones that have worked on Star Wars and made their mark on the galaxy far, far away.
so we're going to talk about that. We always start the show with some announcements and things kind of coming down the line, and then we, of course, will wrap up with our schedule for the VCN. Skeleton Crew is, I can't believe, almost over already. I feel
I
like it just started.
know. So freaking fast.
Yeah,
Already.
these. So I've not seen last night's episode. I prioritized, for my own mental health, I prioritized spending some time with somebody that I love in a place that I love, and just needed the breather to be
Mm.
away from everything for a little bit.
Everything. Yeah.
And so I did not get a chance to watch yesterday's Skeleton Crew. That's on my list, hopefully for after our show. I'll tuck in and watch it because it's also like 30 degrees here in Florida right now. So
Yeah.
kind
It's like 20 here. So I get
of
it.
very cold in Florida.
It'd be
So I'm
chilly.
going to go under my blanket pile and watch some kids in space. But
And
I love this show.
Me
I
too.
I love the Skeleton Crew. Um, I don't have to think about anything when I watch the Skeleton Crew. It's like such a fun, low stakes show. Um, like not low stakes for their plot. Like their plot is obviously like I just don't I feel like it's not connected to a million other things in Star Wars and I can just
Yeah.
watch and like enjoy it for what it is. So I've really been happy with the Skeleton Crew and I'll be sad to see that one end, but I'm glad that it has like its end point. Like it is
Yeah.
ending at episode 8 and we just got a fun little Star Wars story.
But then I'm not gonna want it to end because I'm really enjoying it, and the kids are adorable. The adventures is good, and um, I don't really know how it's gonna end. To be honest with you, usually I
Yeah,
kind of have an idea, but no, not this time.
I think the big thing I'm really loving with this so far, and again, I haven't seen last night's episode, so I don't know if anything has changed with last night's episode, but like I'm just really loving that there's no like there haven't been any of those like obnoxious sort of like cameos where it's like, oh, we're gonna put this person in just to put this person in. Like they've all been new characters
Yeah.
and it's all been very like fresh and original and there's no onus to like have to,
Well,
you
with the
know,
exception of Vane. Vane was in The Mandalorian, but
yeah.
he's the only guy that's we have seen before, so that's pretty cool.
But it's, I know everybody's like really wanting Hondo to like appear, which like don't get me wrong, I love Hondo, but like
Someday, Hondo. Someday.
I just I don't want him like I don't feel like this is he'd also be like super duper old, but like I
We
just
don't
don't
know
want
how
him
long those
in
guys
this.
live.
We don't. That's all. I mean, who
Yeah,
knows? Maybe it's not that old, but
look at the
I
Wookiees.
kind of don't want him to show up in this. Like, I want him to do whatever it is he's doing, like wherever he's doing it, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing I've really been loving with the Skeleton Crew, I know everybody's like staunchly Neil Nation, and like, listen, I get it. Like, we all love Neil, and we should love Neil because he's an angel and he's never going to do anything wrong. Um, I need to talk about KB for a second.
Yeah, KB is amazing.
Um, One of the things I had a great chat with a friend of mine on Instagram over the last week or so, and we were talking about disability representation
Mhm.
in the Skeleton Crew.
Huge.
And I mean, we've seen characters with different types of disability represented in Star Wars before. But what I
Obviously
think has
missing
been
hands, but
well, yeah, but what I think has
yeah,
been so moving, like not this week's episode, but last week's episode that really kind of focused on KB. Um, I was, as somebody who doesn't have any sort of either, any sort of disability, whether it's visible or hidden, I was so moved by how beautifully they navigated the conversation around KB's disability
mhm,
and how she talked about trying to keep up with Fern as her best friend and how
yeah,
Fern didn't necessarily understand that um KB couldn't do all the things that Fern could do.
right.
And you know it was presented in such a, again, I can't say authentic because as somebody without a disability, like I don't know what this feeling looks like or feels like, but
Yeah,
it just felt so real. It was a really sobering moment, but like it was handled
it's
so beautifully.
yeah, it's true. My sister was disabled, and she always fought like hell to keep up with us, and I can understand that so well with KB explaining to Wim like the struggles that she has, and they don't really go into detail about her accident, but I feel like she gets the point across, and how she feels kind of like her life before and her life now. Like things can change, and Fern doesn't understand that, and it was kind of sad. But again, it sheds light on those who do have those struggles and do have that disability, and it puts it in a way where it's not hitting you over the head, but it's going for the emotional impact of it, and I think that helps get the point across faster.
Well, and the again, I guess I don't know how much of a spoiler this really is because I feel like we haven't touched too much on like the actual guts of the episode, but like
We will.
um
When it's over, we'll talk about
yeah,
it.
and that's the other thing
Next
is we
episode, we'll
we
do
opted to
that.
not do like a full Skeleton Crew debrief today because we were kind of waiting for like our next show where the Skeleton Crew will have been totally over, so we'll be able to talk about like the whole series
Yeah.
all at once. But um, I was just really moved by the disability representation with
Yeah.
KB in that episode, and I love that. Without getting too much into the actual details of the scene, I love that while she expressed that she couldn't do everything that Fern could do, um, we saw that moment at the end where she could do something that nobody else could do. And I think that's really important to recognize is that,
So cool.
disabilities don't necessarily have to be limiting. It just means that somebody does something in a different way.
And
And
no
seeing
spoilers,
her,
but she does something in the new episode that is pretty fun. So.
I remember being so intrigued by the character design for KB when they first started showing like the teasers of the kids and like, who these characters were and everything. And I know everybody loves Neil, and don't get me wrong, I love Neil, but
Yep.
KB is absolutely my girl in the
Yeah.
Skeleton Crew, and I've totally fallen in love with her character, and
Her character development's been great.
I love to see it. So yeah, I've been really happy with the way the Skeleton Crew has been chugging along. Can't wait to see that to its conclusion. Um, already, my partner and I were talking about the Lego set, how
Oh,
badly
I
we
know.
want a Lego set for that ship. Like,
It's
so cool.
yeah, it exists. The Onyx Cinder, it exists.
I want it with the modification that we saw last week. I
I
think that's
know. It's
very
so
cool.
cool. It's the ship design in this series has been like chef's kiss.
I'm like not even a huge ship girly, but like, that one I was like, oh, you know what? I could be a ship girly. I say
Yeah.
that like my giant ghost didn't just arrive this week, sitting right behind me in a box. I'm not
Do
a
you
ship
love
girly,
it?
but
Do
I
you
haven't even
love
taken it
it?
out yet. I have a 3-year-old and I can't unpack that thing right now.
Yeah, I know.
So
Mine's still in the box in my dining room downstairs. So
yeah, the ghost is huge.
it's a mess.
After a year and change, it has arrived. For those of us who bought the Ghost HasLab, it's finally delivered. My FedEx guy was the absolute goat, and he schlepped it into the house for me because it's like a million freaking pounds. But yeah, I popped it open long enough to make sure that all the boxes were there and nothing looked like it was broken or damaged. But I have a 3-year-old, so I'm not setting up a $600 ghost until I have a safe place to do that. So
Absolutely. Jeff says we have a
gonna
female
wait.
guest this week, Tamara, on the watch along. Not a producer director, but a big part of the production. Tamara Carlson Woodard, creature performer and puppeteer. So she's Team Grogu, and
Yes.
it's exciting. So I have to watch that and with my little Legacy Effects sideshow Grogu that I have.
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned Grogu. So I I was like, maybe I'll just sit and rewatch The Mandalorian because like it's been a minute and I haven't watched it. And then I
Yeah.
realized that Disney Plus uploaded all 6 seasons of What We Do in the Shadows, and I suddenly prioritized gay vampires instead of Grogu. So I did
Gonna
not watch My
suck into
Mandalorian.
the Long Island vampires.
If you know, you
New
know. What
York
We Do in the Shadows
City.
is possibly my favorite television show.
Oh my god, it's right
It's
from the get-go. It's absolutely insane, but in the most brilliant ways.
all-time
Amazing
favorite.
cameos, amazing cast.
So the
The
Taika Waititi movie is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Oh my god,
Like
it's
it's
so
easily
funny.
in my top 5.
Yeah.
And I opened Disney Plus one morning, presumably to put on Bluey for my kid because that's how we start our mornings is with Bluey.
Yep.
And I was like, wait a minute, that's a banner for What We Do in the Shadows. And I fully expected them to be like, you can watch
Do you
all of
have
it
the
now on
Hulu
Hulu.
crossover? Just to
I don't.
Oh.
I don't. Right now, the only streaming service I have is Disney Plus, and I thought for sure it was going to be like one of those like upgrade your account to Hulu and you can watch all these gay vampires. And I was prepared for that, but I'm like, well, let me just see. And I was like, oh my god, all 6 seasons are here. And I went to hit play, and I am halfway through season 1 now, and very happy with my life choice. All this to say, all this tangent to say, I did not start rewatching The Mandalorian.
Yeah, Jeff says that Mark
So
Hamill has an amazing arc on What We Do in the
there you
Shadows.
go.
That's
See,
one of my favorite episodes ever.
now it's related.
Tucson, Arizona. I love it.
So Sherry,
Oh, Sherry, it's so
it's
good.
a
You have to
very
try.
unique sense of humor.
Yeah.
I would strongly suggest if you had a hard time watching season 1, maybe try watching the movie. The movie does not have the same characters, but it'll kind of give you, I feel like, a better footing with some of the humor, because
The,
that same
the
humor carries
characters
over to the
from the
TV show.
movie show up in season 1.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but it's got a very strange sense of humor. It's it as the show progresses, it gets a little bit more unhinged, which I guess
Oh
some
yeah.
people like and some people don't. But I I love What We Do in the Shadows. So this is your PSA that it is now available on Disney Plus, and you can watch it on Disney Plus. So
That's
you can also watch The
exciting.
Mandalorian if you aren't going to be distracted, which is what I intended to do, but
So, speaking
got
of The
distracted.
Mandalorian,
This was my segue, and
da-da-da, go ahead, Jamie.
then I started thinking about
Vampires.
Jackie Daytona. Here we are.
Regular human bartender.
So stupid.
I know, it's great.
Uh,
We could do
yeah,
this all day.
so we're going to talk about female filmmakers and directors, producers. One of my hot button issues when I during the pandemic, especially like when a lot of this content was coming out, and I was doing my great big Star Wars rewatch, and starting from the very beginning and going all the way through the end, was kind of how jarring it was that I didn't see
Mm,
a lot of female names in those credits in those roles, in
right.
the director, producer, writer role. And there's a pretty famous picture, and this, like, I think about this picture all the time. And I think Lucasfilm intended it for it to be like presented one way, and it wasn't the flex that they thought it was, where they were like, they rounded up basically like every female like employee in that building, in the Lucasfilm building, and brought them out to do like a big group photo. And every one of those women, that whole group of women, basically fit into the parking space of a car with a car in that parking space.
Yeah,
And
it's kind of
it
depressing.
was depressing was a word for it.
Yeah,
Infuriating was another word for it,
yeah.
because you know representation across the board, I think, with a lot of female filmmakers and a lot of queer female filmmakers, which is another topic we're gonna get into.
Yeah.
Um, it really matters, and I feel like it creates so much more authenticity and different levels and layers in content like Star Wars. We just talked about this character KB and disability representation, and I'd be curious to know, and I haven't done any research on it yet, but like I'd be curious to know how those scenes were written, who contributed to those scenes. Like, was it a person with a disability? Was it a person, with
Who knew someone with
a
a
loved
disability?
one, a partner, a child, a spouse, a parent, or whatever with a disability? So you don't get that level of authenticity without inviting women to the table, queer people to the table, people with disabilities to the table, people of color to the table. And so my hope and aspiration, and I think we're kind of starting to see it, like we're kind of getting into the rhythm of it now with Lucasfilm, is when are more women going to be invited to the table? When are more women going to be given the opportunity, not just to, maybe direct a show that was written by a man, but write that show, direct that show, produce that show, carry the full weight of that show on their
Right.
shoulders, and what's that going to look like? And I felt like the closest we got, of course, was The Acolyte, which we're going to get to
Yeah.
Leslie Headland in a second.
Do you want to start with her? We can
No,
while we're on this.
actually, no. Actually, I actually did want to start with The Mandalorian, because The Mandalorian, I
Yeah.
think, was the first
The
time
segue
where,
into things. Right.
yeah. So as I was watching, doing my great big COVID rewatch, um, and getting frustrated that I wasn't seeing more female names in these roles in these credits, uh,
Yeah.
the first episode actually that comes to mind that I thought to myself was like, wow, this is actually my favorite episode of The Mandalorian so far, was early on in season one, was Bryce Dallas Howard's first episode, called what,
Yeah.
Sanctuary, I think was what it was called.
Yes.
And it was the episode where Mando and Grogu are trying to lay low on the planet, where they end up meeting Cara Dune, which, and trying to basically just stay in a nice, quiet village where they can not worry about bounty hunting for a little bit. And of course, everything goes to hell. But that episode
Yeah.
became a huge favorite of mine. It just felt it it felt really cohesive, I
Mhm.
think, and it felt really cinematic in a way where it was like only a 45-minute long episode, but it
Yeah, it
felt
wasn't
like
a very long episode.
a full cinematic arc in just 45 minutes. And came to find out at the end of the episode that it was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. And that was kind of where my love affair with Bryce began.
So,
Was
Bryce, for those who don't know, she's the daughter of director Ron Howard, who directed Solo, or saved
Solo.
Solo, we should say, because we know.
I liked Solo.
Yeah, but I feel like as soon as she started in Sanctuary, you got a lot of things that weren't really seen in Star Wars before. You got to understand like this group of people and their way of life, how they on this planet, and how they were basically like, I don't know, blue shrimp mining, I guess, or blue shrimpers, I should say. Um, but they were put at risk by the Empire, and um, who were after Mando and Grogu, and um, having the level of empathy for not only these native people, but the Mandalorian never taking his helmet off, and the potential of him finding love, question mark. Like, there was other things that we kind of really didn't see in Star Wars before at that time, so it was pretty cool to kind of get to that nitty gritty.
It was also an episode where, listen, I
Teamwork. Teamwork was big
well,
in this.
teamwork. I also really liked, and obviously my thoughts around this character and the performer have changed dramatically. But I enjoyed Cara Dune's role in this
Yeah,
episode.
she was really good. It was fun. And the
And
sippy
I
cup of soup was
Yeah, I mean,
adorable.
sure. You know, but I really, that was Cara Dune's first appearance. And again, while my opinion of the character and the role has changed, I was really in the moment, really happy with the representation of a female character like Cara Dune. And I
True.
think having the direction of Bryce Dallas Howard directing a character like that, a performer like that, I think ultimately helped. I also like that none of her female characters in that episode were sidelined or presented as like less than or
Absolutely.
incapable and had to be sort of at the you know need to be defended by the men in the episode or whatnot. Like they were right up there fighting with everybody
Yeah.
else.
Plotting, helping out.
Bryce Dallas Howard really knows how to create to create like a little cinematic moment, like a full cinematic story in a very short period of time. I would love to see her, and I feel like it's inevitable at this point.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would love to see her get her own movie. I kind of wish if Patty Jenkins wasn't going to do the Rogue One story, not Rogue One story, the Rogue Squadron story. Um, I feel like I would like to see Bryce Dallas Howard do that. And obviously, we're in a weird place with that now, so who knows? But I hope she does get her movie.
I think she
Um,
will. I don't know if it will necessarily be Rogue Squadron, because I feel like that's Patty's kind of
so
area
I
of
feel like it's
expertise.
going to be hard to get that one back online after everything, but
Yeah, but at the
we'll
same
see.
time, I feel like Bryce can branch out into a new area of expertise, and it will be just as phenomenal.
Yeah, and I mean she's done a lot with the Mando for God, I hate saying Mandoverse. I just hate that word. I hate it. But she's done a lot with that. She's done her other big episode, of course, in The Mandalorian was the first appearance of Bo-Katan.
The
Um,
Heiress. Yeah,
yep.
season
So
2.
that was, and honestly, that was a great episode. The pacing on that episode was really, really good.
So much
Um,
sass.
yeah, that was another one that felt like a whole movie in
Mhm.
45 minutes, just with how it was shot and how the story progressed and how the characters were introduced and how this whole Mandalorian culture was kind of like Filoniverse is actually worse than Mandoverse. I would take the Mandoverse over Filoniverse because Filoniverse implies that he's the only person bringing these stories to life, and we're here talking about how Bryce Dallas Howard is actually a huge player in that.
Yeah, and he wouldn't be so bold and so, self-important to say that. So, yeah, I agree. It's just like, I just need my giant sippy cup. Okay. So, um, so she's done one episode of all 3 seasons, like one episode in each season. Um, for season 3, she did season 3, episode 6, chapter 22, Guns for Hire. So that was a
Why am I not
pretty
remembering which episode this was? This
um
was. Wait, was that? No, see, this is where I'm getting confused with the Book of Boba Fett because she also did.
so that's when they went to met with Jack Black and Lizzo.
Yes,
But it
which.
was just like a really fun episode, and she got to direct Christopher Lloyd. Like, that's amazing.
So I love my girl Bryce Dallas Howard. I didn't enjoy that episode. I
Fun.
felt it. It was. I think the problem with that episode is where it landed in the season, because I think by the time we got to that episode, if they had just done that one sort of like wacky filler episode that was kind of like a side quest, but like I would have been like, you know what, this is the one to do. But I felt like at that point in the season, we had seen so many side quests that I
Yeah.
was so burned out. I was like, can we just move this plot along? Like, can we please just move forward?
Yeah.
And if it had been that one episode was like our wacky side quest. We got to see Lizzo, we got Christopher Lloyd, we got Jack Black, we all had a good time. I would like to
Grogu
see the
played
baby.
golf. It's fine.
Yeah, that yeah, they all play golf, whatever. I would have been like, this was a wacky Star Wars adventure, and I had fun with it. But unfortunately, Bryce Dallas Howard's episode came so late in that I was just exhausted. I was like, God, not another one of these episodes. But then the flip side of that is that she also moved the plot right along in the Book of Boba Fett, where she had the episode that introduced the Mandalorian into the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
And she's demonstrated that she can what's the word I want to use? I'm moving to the Skeleton Crew here because she's had her episode in the Skeleton Crew as well, but she's demonstrated that she can move the plot along, but she can also take a small moment and really like make it create ripples that are kind of felt. And that's what happened in the Skeleton Crew episode. Because her episode is actually pretty short in the Skeleton Crew.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's one of my favorites because I feel like it does the most, as you said, the most to advance the plot of the whole story.
we won't get too much into the Skeleton Crew plot, like the plot of her episode, because it is fairly new. But
We'll
the
discuss
episode
it
is
in 2 weeks.
yeah, we'll discuss it in 2 weeks. But she has a lot of really great moments with Fern.
Yeah.
She does a lot of great direction with Fern, and I think what's really important to highlight here is that she's directed adults and she's directed puppets like Grogu, and she's directed really serious and heavy plots, but she also manages to bring that levity to a child performer as well. And I don't think a lot of directors can say that they have the diversity in doing both. I think that she's really talented in working with
Yeah.
uh, you know tenured and people who have been in the business for a while, and newcomers and young performers as well. And that's part of why I really enjoy seeing her
Yes.
work.
I feel like she could have asked her dad about that because her dad, as everybody knows, was
Yep.
a child actor on the Andy Griffith Show. That was his first Hollywood role. He was a child, and he grew up not only in front of the camera but behind the camera as well. So asking her father, maybe like, okay, when you were a kid, what was your situations and your experiences like, and just kind of use it to adapt to this portion of it. And granted, it's a different time in Hollywood, but the empathy is still there. So
Yeah. So I'm really, I'm definitely. I joke that every Bryce Dallas Howard episode in a show is usually my favorite episode in the show.
yeah,
And so far
for
that
real.
theory has been proven true. Everything
Yeah.
she's done. I also feel like we haven't talked about the fact that she's Yaddle
Yeah.
in
Oh,
Tales of the
girl,
Jedi,
did everything. Damn.
which is pretty cool. I was like,
Yeah.
and she got to work with dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. So I mean,
So
good for
moving
her.
on to another Mandalorian director, a director who got her start directing an episode of The Mandalorian, Deborah Chow.
Mm.
Um, she not only did Deborah direct an episode of The Mandalorian in season 1, chapter 3, The Sin, and season 1, episode 7, The Reckoning. She also shows up as a character or an X-wing pilot It's her only actress credit, actually, believe it or not, as Sash Kedar, according to her IMDb. But she's been in 3 episodes as Sash. Sorry, 2 episodes as Sash. Oh no, it is 3. She's twice in season 3. I'm sorry. Um, but Deborah's episodes, I feel like there's a little bit of action, but there's also, like, as we said, it's the emotional weight that they offer to Star Wars.
Hmm.
Um, I'm trying to find that episode. I'm sorry, you guys. So the Sin episode is when the Mandalorian returns Grogu to the client, and he just can't live with himself, and the idea of credits are no longer appealing. He wants to save this child, and like I said, it's a really emotional episode because he, like us, fell in love with the baby, and he doesn't want to give him up. And there's so much action and so much craziness that evolves from this moment. And I think you see him really struggle for the first time because he's a bounty hunter. Like, honestly, a bounty has never been a problem for him before. That's why he's one of the best. And he's so taken by this child that he's willing to risk everything for him. And it's so heavy and so emotional. And it probably puts him on, like, the most wanted list for a lot of clients. But yeah,
Well,
I thought Deborah did such a good job with this episode.
Deborah, um, she was another one who I wasn't familiar with her
Yeah,
directorial
she doesn't
style,
have
and
a lot of credits.
I will tell you, when I saw her episodes of The Mandalorian, in a lot of ways, honestly, didn't give them too much thought. Really, my first moment with Deborah Chow, where I was like, okay, I see you, was Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes, we'll go into
Because
that too.
for those, I mean, I'm sure everybody knows, but like that was her baby. And I
All the
know,
way
you
through.
know,
6
a lot of
episodes.
people had thoughts on Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I was initially one of those people that was kind of like, do we really need this? Like, is this one of those like Book of Boba Fett where it's like we're just kind of filling in little itty bitty teeny little gaps in the timeline with stories that aren't ultimately going to make a huge impact on um, the bigger story that we're telling here? And I was very much like, I don't know if we need Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then I saw it and was like, I actually really enjoy this.
Yes.
I really enjoyed Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes.
Um, I felt like they managed to work in a lot of great surprises with that show. I felt like it did offer a lot of layered depth to not only Obi-Wan himself, but also characters,
The clone.
uh, the clones, but like even Leia. I think giving Leia sort of, we have a lot of great young Leia content in the books, but
Yeah.
giving her that moment in like on screen, I think was really great. And even characters like Bail Organa, like seeing characters like Bail Organa and you know the um,
And
the
Brea, gets a
Skywalkers, yeah,
whole
the
story too.
um, so it was just it was a really done series, a well done series. I liked that she was able to balance the levels of like emotion, but also still give us really great action scenes, like
Oh
the
yeah.
Vader and Obi-Wan duel. That was pretty good. That was a pretty good one.
Setting
Lots
him
of fun
free from
twists and
his
turns.
guilt was, like, insane. Like, the level of emotion in that scene where he's like, "I'm sorry," and he goes, "You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker, I did." It's like, oh,
Yeah,
oh.
even even finding a way to work us in with the Obi-Wan that we knew from like the prequel trilogy
Mm,
and the Clone Wars, finding a way to direct Ewan McGregor, who is obviously aged, like the actor himself, like Ewan has obviously aged since the prequels, um, but finding a way to meet Ewan at where his age is, where his skill set is, and to kind of give him that moment, that middle moment between the
yeah,
prequel series and Alec Guinness in the original trilogy, um, I thought was really well done. I think between his performance and her direction, I think it was they handled it a lot better than I expected them to, because I
Yeah,
really went into that show with very low expectations, and I think her directorial style was really complimentary of that story. Um,
true. And
so
she
I was
made us
happy with
care
that.
about an inquisitor.
Yeah.
Like that was amazing.
Yep.
To get to the depth of oh my gosh, I'm so
Reva.
sorry. Reva's story. I was like, it starts with an R. I'm sorry, it's
Yeah.
been a little bit. To get to the depth of Reva's story and from a nearly murdered Padawan to a full-on Inquisitor working for Darth Vader and seeking revenge on not only Obi-Wan Kenobi for Vader's reasons, but for um seeking revenge on Darth Vader himself for what happened at the temple. So she gets a whole story arc that's just incredibly in depth, and you kind of feel bad for her because it's like revenge is all she's got.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, it's it's another fun series, and I like that they gave her opportunity to introduce topics and ideas that could potentially come up later. So it's like, again, while I am not a fan of the sort of beating of this era just over and over and over again, like that's where they sort of introduced the concept of like how they were able to sort of shuttle Jedi from point A to point B, and
mm.
that whole underground, like, network of tunnels and
The
stuff that
path, man, the path.
Quinlan Voss may or may not have been involved with. Like,
It's on the
so
wall. Quinlan was there.
yeah, so I
Quinlan was
mean,
here in Orabush.
so, that opens us up for another potential outlet for more of these stories,
Oh,
which
and you know that
is,
Ewan's on board for it, and
he
so
is.
am I.
Again, it's that blessing and a curse, and this is where we really need those strong directors, because it's like a topic like this could have been
Yeah,
really just beaten and heavy-handed, and I feel like you need a director that's going to understand that if you bring a new story to this timeline, it has to be a truly new story. Like, we can't just hammer in over and over and over and over on Darth Vader and Ahsoka Tano and Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker. Like, we have to find ways to make this era more interesting and
and
fresh and new.
I think she
Um,
did by changing us the surprise focus from him protecting Luke to him suddenly having to protect Leia.
mhm. um, and that's what I would say is, like, if for another topic for her, if she wanted to explore that Quinlan Voss angle, I would also love to see her, like, if anybody's going to do anything with, God, I hate the fact that she's back, but here we are. If anybody's going to do anything with Ventress, somehow Ventress survived. Um, maybe she's the right director to do a Quinlan Voss and a Ventress story. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Um, but the other, the one that we have to, or the one that I love talking about the most, because I'm really passionate about her work and I love her so much, uh, who has demonstrated that she understands this content and understands how to tell a fresh and new story,
Right.
is, of course, my girl Leslie Headland.
Yeah.
um, so what I love about Leslie, there's a lot of really great interviews with her. And leading up to the Acolyte, if you know me, I try really hard to keep myself in the dark as much as possible, because I want to go into a
Spoiler free.
story with no, like, I want to go in totally blind and just experience it for what it's going to be. And I'm really glad that I did that with the Acolyte, because being so passionate about the High Republic, I knew the very broad strokes based on casting. Thank you. Uh,
On the
I
nose.
knew the very broad strokes with casting, but I really wanted to be surprised with the story. And I didn't even read any interviews leading up to it. Like, I knew
Oh
who Leslie
wow.
Headland was. I didn't read any interviews. I wanted to have the story and then go back to it.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite interviews with Leslie Headland is she talks about how she had like a period of time in like her teenage or early young adult years where things were not good, and she really leaned heavily, like so many people do, on Star Wars. And she just sort of absorbed anything and everything she could Star Wars wise. She was reading the books and she was playing games and she was watching all the shows and the movies. Oh, I mean, she's a little bit older, so maybe not the shows, because the shows weren't really around, but like, she was watching all of the movies and just really absorbing everything she could with Star Wars to be like
Right.
this encyclopedia of just Star Wars content. And what I love about that is that she was able to, as time went on, obviously embracing and absorbing more and more Star Wars content, she was able to bring all of those passion points to the Acolyte
Yeah.
and demonstrate that she knew exactly what was going on in the EU, maybe better than any other Star Wars director that we've seen on a
For
project like this
real.
before.
Yeah.
Um, she knew exactly what was going on in the new canon timeline, but knew exactly what was happening in the EU that had been cut as well. And she getting to demonstrate that knowledge and that passion with blending the new, which is the High Republic, and the old with Darth Plagueis, I think was just incredible.
Pretty
And
damn awesome. Yeah.
I have this weird amount of like, what is it even called when you have pride for somebody that like you don't know and you have no connection to, but like it's like this weird mesh of like admiration and pride.
Yeah.
But like you see it all just come to fruition and you're just like, get
Thank
it,
you.
sis. Like absolutely. So I have a ton of respect for her.
Yeah.
I love listening to her talk. Um, I love listening to her just fiercely protect the things that are important to her, whether it's Star Wars stuff or personal life stuff. I love that she's an advocate for queer voices
She's
in
married to
cinema.
the actress who plays Vernestra
For Nestra, Rebecca
Henderson.
Henderson. Um, but it's just, she has become my favorite Star Wars director, and
Clearly.
I, yeah, well, clearly, but I
Yeah.
also just my heart breaks for her because there's another sort of more recent article that came out just in the last couple of weeks
Yeah.
where they finally Manny Jacinto finally revealed that there were 3 seasons of The Acolyte written. Um,
Oh
and there
no.
were 3 seasons prepared, and if the third season did well, there was even like a skeleton for a film.
Come
Um,
on.
and it's just devastating to me because I
Yeah.
know that this isn't the end of Leslie Headland's story with Star Wars, but like I just feel like she had so much story in her, and sure, we'll probably get it in a book or whatever, but like
It's not the same.
it's not the same, and she
Yeah.
really deserved to get to tell the story that
Right.
she wanted to tell. So,
Right. Right. Um,
um,
but yeah, the Acolyte went in ways that we weren't expecting it to go. Like it kind of delved into more of the dark side of things. As we, usually we'll get the good versus evil thing, but this is just like evil versus everything else.
yeah,
So
she describes it as a gothic story,
yeah,
like
which is
a gothic
accurate.
romance,
Yeah.
which, yeah. The other director too that um, I really, um, they haven't produced anything yet, so like it's hard to like say anything, especially with the uncertainty around this project. But I've been following and starting to read some articles on the director who was penned for the new Ray movie, um, Sharmeen Obaid Chinoy. She's a
Okay.
Pakistani filmmaker. Um, she's a Pakistani director who has done a lot of documentary and Pakistani stories because that's obviously her heritage and that's where she's from. Um, but her work has been really well received, and she sort of specializes in raising voices of uh, women of color. Um, she has a documentary about oh god, what's it called? Hang on, I literally was just pulling it up because I was trying to pull up her IMDb. It's basically a documentary that goes through Saving Face. Um, tells the story of women who are affected by acid attacks in
Oh
the Middle
no.
East. So it's a documentary that sort of highlights their stories and talks about what their life looks like after these attacks. Um, but she is the director, excuse me, who is kind of tapped to do the Rey story, and it will be her first foray into Star Wars and moving into a big franchise like this. She's
Yeah.
never done another
Huge.
franchise style movie.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm concerned for a lot of reasons because the fandom menace loves going after directors like Leslie Headland and now Charmine, excuse me, um, because they are outspoken, passionate women who raise voices of other outspoken, passionate women who are oftentimes in the shadows or in a minority. Um, and I just really worry because everything I hear about this Ray project, like I would love to hear a story told by that director. Like I would
Mhm.
love to hear a Ray story told from that
Yeah.
director's perspective. But everything about this new movie feels very uncertain all of a sudden and feels very like, we're going to kick it down the line a little bit more, which is never a good sign for Star Wars.
Yeah. And the fact that they got Daisy to come back for it, like that's gonna help because whether the fandom menace likes it or not, Rey is a very major character in Star Wars, especially for the younger generation. Because again, Star Wars is also for kids. And
I mean,
I
Star
know,
Wars is for kids, yes.
yeah, and a lot of young children that I got to see at cons and obviously walking around Disney World and Disneyland and getting to meet Rey and Chewie, like they care about the character and it's got to be done right. You can't rush it, you can't force it, and it's got to be a story willing that's worth telling. So
I really hope she does get her moment.
I do, yeah,
I, the more I kind of hear about her, I don't know where a lot of her stories are streaming right now. A lot of her films are streaming.
yeah,
My guess is unfortunately on platforms I don't have. So I'm gonna have to start looking and see what I can find for her because
right.
the more I learn about her, the more I feel like, it's not just time to put women in seats of power with Star Wars content, whether it's directing, producing, writing, whatever that case may be, but like we also need to be doing a lot more to raise voices of people of color, of queer people, of people with disabilities, of women.
Bingo.
And I think, the current mindset in this country is like, oh, well, we need to stop doing things because it's woke. And I'm like, well, there's nothing woke about, putting a female director in charge of Star Wars because I hate to break it to y'all, but like women are half of this country. Like
Yeah,
they're,
and
women are half of this country. Like that's, you
Star
know,
Wars literally, I'll say it before and I say it again, Star Wars is literally the definition of woke.
it's
Look it up.
it's
It
just,
always
I
has
think
been.
I think there are a lot of people that are like, well, Star Wars is just doing it because it's like a Disney flex to like,
Oh
do the
Jesus.
diversity hire thing and to do the this thing. I'm like, no, it's not a diversity hire. It's not a oh well, we're just doing it to check a box. We're not doing it just
Right.
to, get grant money or whatever. It's like women are directors too. Women
Yeah.
are filmmakers too.
We
Women
have
are
stories.
writers too. They're producers. They are costume designers. They are puppeteers. They are actors. They are all of these things. So, you have to make room for everybody at the table. And that's where I would challenge people who have the privilege, like a Jon Favreau, like a Dave Filoni, to take the step down and say, you know what, maybe we are going to put more people in these, more women in these roles. We are going to step away
And
from this
I
project.
think they have.
I think there's opportunity for more, is what I'll say there.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think there's
And
opportunity for more.
we will always say that. Um,
Uh, I just, we can't bow and bend to the loudest people in the room. And I feel like that's a lot of what happened with the Acolyte. The official answer is like, well, the Acolyte costs a lot of money to produce for low viewership, but like, why was there low viewership? There's plenty of viewership for the Skeleton Crew. There's plenty of viewership for the Mandalorian. There's plenty of viewership for Obi-Wan Kenobi. There was low
yeah.
viewership for the Acolyte because the fandom menace decided from the get-go that they were going to review bomb the wrong story called the Acolyte and make it a point of
Contention.
protest forever. And
Yeah.
and anyway, it's a
Um,
messy thing, and that's how I
yeah.
feel about that.
Hopefully things change very quickly in the near future because it's not going to be a very easy 4 years, and we don't want to deal with anything more of that.
No.
But delving really quickly onto because we're coming up towards the end of our
Yeah.
show here, we have a couple of animation queens who have
Yes.
been huge and prolific in getting Star Wars animation out there. First up, we have a visual effects production manager producer who has worked on In the Name of the King, A Dungeon Siege Tale, and Constantine, Keanu Reeves' Constantine movie. Um, her name is Matrix Revolutions, Blade 2, Cats and Dogs Evolution. Like she's done visual effects for all of these through Tippett Studios. So she's coming over to Lucasfilm from Tippett Studios, and she was the executive producer of The Bad Batch, Miss Athena Yvette Portillo. Yeah, again, like Bad Batch, I think really found, as obviously me and Mark have discussed over and over again, Bad Batch really found its stride at the end of season 1 into season 2, and I think it it was given the space to breathe, and her coming on as an executive producer for this project and telling the story of these clones who've suddenly been decommissioned and are seeing the birth of the new empire out of, you know, the Republic, the death of the Republic. It's such a great grand story to tell, but it focuses on this small batch of defective clones and their little sister, so to speak. And it's got so much. Again, I feel like it's one of those stories of compassion that, you know, a woman could really help tell. Not only do you have Omega being an unaltered clone, um, unlike her brothers, but she wants to be part of her brother's team, and she sees something in these clones that she wants to be a part of. And her struggles with finding her way, because she's never left Camino before, and they're all figuring it out together, and they're navigating this whole new world and this whole new galaxy together. And there's so much heart and so much compassion in it. And even the episode where they go to Ryloth and rescue Hera's family, like, you know, again, it's tying into Rebels, but again, there's compassion and there's caring and there's friendship there. So it's been a really awesome series. So if you haven't watched Bad Batch yet, Athena's the executive producer for it, and it's phenomenal.
And I think, you know, to clarify a point I made earlier, I don't want to be so broad, like such a broad stroke that I don't think that men can't do stories about empathy and
Yeah.
compassion. And I think my big thing here, because they absolutely can, right, is that
Mhm.
um from an
And they have.
authenticity standpoint, it's like if you are writing a story about women, hire a woman to write that story. If you are writing a story about a queer person, bring in a queer person with that lived experience to tell that story. If you are writing a story about a person or a character with a disability, bring in a person with that same disability to tell that story with authenticity. And so much of Star Wars has leaned so heavily on male characters, which again is fine. I mean, I love those male characters, but I think as we start to introduce, as time has progressed, and we have gotten characters beyond Leia.
Yeah.
Think about how Carrie Fisher's experience could have been so much different on that set with a female, even a female producer, a female executive director, a
Yeah.
female assistant director, or something. Um, because listen, George made some questionable choices with Leia.
Mhm.
Uh, Not all of them, lots of them were great, but I let the woman wear a bra. We're not in actual space, George. Like, let her
Yeah,
wear a bra. It's okay.
bro. Really. Um,
This is what I'm getting at. So it's not that men can't do these stories. They can, and they have, and they always will. But you need to have that person with a unique
the
perspective
lived
or a
experience.
lived
Yeah.
experience I
Yeah.
think, to get that authenticity bit down.
Um, and we also have Carrie Beck. Now, Carrie has been on um, many of not only the Mandoverse shows, but also like the animated shows. Like she's done Lego Star Wars Freemaker Adventures, Rebels, obviously, Forces of Destiny, Galaxy of Adventures, which were really cool, like kind of animated retelling of episodes of the Star Wars movies, episode 4, 5, and 6. Um, the Clone Wars, and then she made the jump to live action with the Book of Boba Fett. She worked on Tales of the Jedi, The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, The Bad Batch, Tales of the Empire, and she's on Skeleton Crew. So she's kind of made the jump from animation into live action over the years, and she's just been like a producer, a writer, helping out with the crew. Some of the episodes that she's written, let me just go through it real quick right here. She wrote for Star Wars Resistance. She did 38 episodes of that. 72 episodes of Star Wars Rebels she was responsible for. And 19 episodes of the Freemaker Adventures, which was fun. It was like a cute little Lego
I think
adventure.
I've seen a couple of those. I haven't seen them all the
Yeah.
way through.
So she did that. She also worked on 7 episodes of head of development and production and streaming for Young Jedi Adventures,
Oh,
Resistance.
perfect show.
Yep. And live action development and production for Tales of the Jedi as well. So she's got her she's bringing a lot to life that is necessary in Star Wars and kind of keeping it fun and keeping the animation fun as well. We obviously we know how much you love Young Jedi Adventures, and the fact that she kind of greenlit that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's my phone. Sorry, my phone is recording everything I'm saying right now, and I wish it would stop
Siri,
because it
leave
keeps.
us alone.
I can't get it to turn off. So like somebody's gonna get a text of me just talking for the last 20 minutes. It's gonna be great. It's like a very long text, and I'm not dealing with it right now. The
Okay.
we started the show by talking about how in the new year, I don't really believe in like the resolution thing. I believe that any
Yeah.
time in the new year or any time in the year is the perfect time to
Make the
you know,
effort.
make the effort, make a goal,
Yeah.
do whatever it's going to be. But I
Yeah.
would hope that in 2025 and really beyond that Star Wars, the powers that be at Star Wars start really recognizing that like the only way to really embrace the Star Wars, the whole sort of heart of Star Wars, which is rebellion, is to stop giving into um, these really
Yeah.
critical, really negative voices and start really embracing the diversity that you can have on your creative teams,
Yeah.
directors, producers, writers, whatever that role may be.
Amazing
Um,
teams. Yeah.
and looking at how far they've come with some of these incredible hiring, some of these incredible directors, and do more of it. Do more of it because Star Wars has exploded in the last decade and change, and it's it's time. Like it's time. Like we are well past the time
Oh
point
yeah.
to get more of these women into roles where they are able to tell these stories and able to have those same experiences and same level of respect and honor and enthusiasm that we give to their male counterparts.
Yeah.
It's time for that. Um,
Agreed.
so I'll be very curious to see where the year takes us.
Yeah.
New year, lots of new Star Wars content, lots of things happening this year.
Celebration.
Yeah, it's January, so celebration is like
Announcements.
tomorrow, I feel like.
3 more months,
It's here.
kids. 100
3 more
days.
months. Yeah, so you're almost there. I know the event, the virtual cantina, not so virtual cantina.
cantina.
It's a lot
Yeah.
of words. I never get it right. But
It's
that is
okay.
sold out.
You know
So
you
if you're
got it
going,
right. I'm just
there
saying.
you go. See, it just took like 4 times.
Yeah.
So if you're going, that event has sold out. So have
4
fun.
minutes, kids. That sold out in 4 minutes.
Went pretty
Huge.
quick. I'll be at home,
Me
so
too.
enjoy that.
I'll be
But
on
I
the
won't
news
be.
desk driving y'all nuts.
I'll be at home. I'm probably in the parks. I don't know. I'll be doing something. I will be in the parks coming up on the 25th.
Woo, what's
So if
happening
you're
on
going to
the
be
25th?
visiting us here at Batu East, we are celebrating Ahsoka Tano Day on January 25th. We are having a lightsaber meetup. Please come.
Yeah.
Please. My friends and I have worked really hard on this one. We work really hard on all of them, and they're always a good time, but you should come anyway.
It's
So
going
we'll
to
be doing
be
that.
a fantastic time. Last year was
Yes.
pretty amazing. Huge turnout. So you're definitely going to want to be a part of this year.
Disneyland is doing theirs like the next day. So, get your park passes, get your tickets. See, look at that. You can go see Jeff on the West Coast. You can come hang out with me on the East Coast.
Go hang out with Jeff.
Yeah, so Ahsoka Tano Day is coming. We celebrate the screen debut of Ahsoka Tano.
Of
So there you
Snips.
go. And it's a lot of fun. We just take a bunch of pictures and people wave around their lightsabers. And
Ashlee
I,
might show up.
no, we don't know anything about that yet.
Oh, okay.
No, we don't know anything about that. And we also never guarantee that. I think the precedent has been set because she has shown up at other events, but
Right.
we don't know and we aren't confirming or promising any of
Yeah.
that. So
It's not fair to do that ahead of time. So
well, it's not fair to assume to assume anything. It's always like been a surprise and
yeah,
delight
no.
thing.
Yeah.
So for us, as far as we know, it's business as usual.
Okay.
But whether she's there or she's not there, it's always a great time. We always take a ton of photos. It's just a nice like vibe. It's a nice
Yeah.
vibe.
So put on your
Um,
Ahsoka gear and go join everybody from the Star Wars Discord and obviously fans here in the group. Just have fun.
yeah. Yep. So we are sorry, literally as I'm talking about it, I'm getting texts about Ahsoka Tano Day.
Woo!
Um, so yeah, come hang out with us there. We have some stuff happening on the network. What's today? Today is Wednesday. I don't even know.
Today
So
is
tomorrow they're gonna watch
Wednesday.
the Skeleton Crew. They're gonna do a watch along with Skeleton Crew. So do
Yeah,
that.
it's a big deal. Let me just scroll up a little bit here. Da, 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 da. Uh, Jeff, Jeff is one of the hosts of the watch along. If you don't know, they're going to have a guest, Tamara Carlson Woodard, creature performer, puppeteer of Grogu, and other characters in Star Wars. So come hang out with them, talk to Tamara, and learn about what her and her team go through to puppeteer these crazy characters in Star Wars. And also, I don't know, I'm throwing this out there. Maybe she's part of the team that can puppeteer Neil's mask. So that would be really cool.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah. So,
I'm woefully underinformed with the
yeah,
puppeteers
yeah.
and their
But
roles.
yeah, join the guys in tomorrow. Yeah. And so Friday night they have the Skeleton Crew after show. Um, it's midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. East Coast time with John, Bryce, and Mike. Yep, they're all going to be there. Catch them on YouTube. And Sunday they have the Jedi Archives. They'll be.
Star Wars is at its best when it's for kids.
That's right.
I said what I said.
She said
I'm
what
not
she
on that
said.
show, but that's the topic of their show, and I fully agree with that sentiment. So
Oh, she worked on the Teak character, the pirate port. Oh, very cool. So yeah, there's that, and then of course Monday, join me and Skip. Mark will not be there. He will be at the Halloween Expo in Las Vegas.
I mean, gambling and making us all our money. Get
Get us rich, Mark. Come on.
I'll play those penny slots, dude.
Yep.
That's cool. Don't do that. No,
Yeah.
don't do that.
Don't
He's
do that.
actually in Vegas for work.
It's a scary, dark place. Yeah, just make. Yeah, Mark says betting on red. Okay. Yep. Dude, never go black. I've learned from experience. Don't bet on black. It's bad. You lose
I've never
money.
gambled, so I don't really know.
It's icky. Anyway, so yeah, Mark will not be on with us, but it'll be me and Skip, and we'll do episode 16 of season 1 of the Clone Wars, and just talk about this past episode of Skeleton Crew, and come hang out with us. So that's 9
That's what
p.m.
I'm gonna do
Wednesday.
tonight. I'm gonna go
It's
watch Skeleton
short
Crew.
and it's frustrating, but you'll love it. So,
I mean, that's Star Wars.
and Star Wars.
Well, thank you for hanging out with us.
Yeah.
We will be back in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about the Skeleton Crew in 2 weeks, which is part of why we didn't talk about it too much tonight.
Yeah.
Wherever you are, please take care of yourself. Again,
Be
our friends in
safe.
Southern California, we're thinking of you. We are hoping for the best. I know I'm kind of on pins and needles to check some text messages and see if any of my family and friends have gotten back to me. But
Yeah.
just be safe, take care of each other. If you are not in Southern California, I feel like the rest of the country is just really cold right now, so stay warm.
Yeah, as you can see, I'm kind of shivering
Yeah, it's
wearing my
cold.
short sleeve shirt in my house. It is
I mean, it's
very
40
cold.
degrees here in Florida right now, so that should tell you all you need to know.
Ew.
We
Ew.
will see you guys in 2 weeks. Be safe, be good, make good choices if you don't make good stories, and I want to hear them. So we will see you in a little bit.
All right, guys. See you in
And
2 weeks.
for
May
light
the
life,
force be
y'all.
with you.
Bye.
Bye.